to excuse me. I was meant to meet Bomber at the library and we got our wires crossed, so I guess we should have exchanged mobile phone numbers. It might have worked out better. But I'd like to welcome you all here. I'm really excited about this debate. I work for both Amnesty International and I'm also a public relations student in my final year here at AUT. And I thought that we could put our public relations expertise together to do something for Amnesty International. And I also love the media, and it was a toss-up between being a PR practitioner and a journalist. So I think it's going to be a great event, and I'd like to thank you all for coming and for the support that you've given. And I'd now like to pass the time over to Russell Brown, who will be chairing the debate today. Thank you.
Hello, Tanakwe, Talofa, Nihao, and welcome to the Amnesty International Aotearoa debate, presented by Club PR. As you heard, I'm Russell Brown, and I'm here because it seemed easier than street collecting. Every year they ring me up and say, oh, we've got you on our list, could you be a street collector for us again this year? And I have to explain that I've never done that, but I always try and help out because I really support what Amnesty is about. Today, our opposing teams of journalists and PR practitioners will be debating the moot that, when it comes to human rights in New Zealand, the news media create more heat than light. Or to put it in sustainability terms, are the media a wasteful, planet-whacking, incandescent light bulb, or a sweet green CFL twirly bulb? Leading off for the affirmative team will be Martin Bomber Bradbury. Put your hand up please, Martin. Co-founder of Tūmeki, creator of Bomber's blog, which isn't a blog, and lead lefty in the Liberal attack wing. Warning may contain ranting. He'll be followed for the negative by Jane Sweeney, Managing Director of Port in the Valley. Jane's bio, which I have since discovered was penned by one of our judges, was so agreeable, professional, and appealing that it falls to me to tell you that she does in fact eat babies. Possibly. Next, for the affirmative, Josh Gale, a postgraduate journalism student who is interested in investigative and agenda-setting journalism, and therefore apparently not planning to work in New Zealand. Then we'll hear from an apprentice in the dark arts, final year public relations student Robert Stephen, who describes himself as a keen filmmaker and a master curry chef. It's nice for the young folk to have hobbies, isn't it? We've got extra change. Concluding for the affirmative team will be my homeboy Wallace Chapman, host of local shouting contest, backbenchers, drive host on Kiwi FM, and I can shockingly reveal, a former advertising creative. He is indeed the author of the immortal line, "Where do you do poos?" That's right. People always remember that. That's what they're going to remember. They do, don't they? They're going to remember you for "Where do you do poos?" And wrapping it up for the negatories is a former shill for Big Tobacco, Carrot Graham, who says he lies awake at nights worrying about the bias and cynicism of journalists. That's his job. Each of the speakers will have a minimum of 3 minutes and a maximum of 5 to put their case. There will be 1 bell on 4 minutes and 2 bells, at which point the speech must stop at 5 minutes. The judges, so Martin, are you in the judging panel or not? You're not. Be in the audience. Right. In the audience. The judges, Greg Treadwell and Martin Boyle, will then deliberate, and the losing team will be imprisoned. And now to argue for the move.
Point of clarification, sorry Russell, 5 minutes the bell will go, but they don't have to stop there in penalty time.
Ah, so they'll be imprisoned and tortured. And now to argue for the moot. When it comes to human rights in New Zealand, the news media create more heat than light. Let me welcome the first speaker, Martin Bomber Bradbury.
Brothers, sisters, whānau, comrades, AUT students, the mighty Martin Hurst, the adorable Russell Brown, assorted other judges. Kia ora. I'm not a journalist, I'm a blogger. We get paid more. We gather here today for Amnesty International to debate that when it comes to human rights, the news media shed more heat than light. I'd like to start by apologising for our opposition who are about to waste your time. They're stealing 20 minutes of your life you are never getting back, because the case that the news media treats human rights with more heat than light is built into the very DNA of the ratings-driven mainstream media in the exact same way Michael Laws's sexy text messages are proof of a very lonely, very horny old man. People's hero Wallace Chapman will point out how East Timor in the history of PR shows that heat triumphs light, and Rebel Alliance leader Josh Gale highlights the pathetic attempt by the media to stop warmongering. The news media are addicted to ratings-driven news in the same way Millie Holmes is addicted to late nights and not sleeping for a week. In 1984, before the market-driven ratings reforms within TVNZ, 40% of the news bulletin was politics. After the ratings-driven market reforms by 1996, the news bulletin was 20% politics, 20% crime. Why? Because gory crime rates. In March 2006, the One Network News Bulletin consisted of 22% crime stories, while crime featured in the headlines 29% of the time. By March 2010, the crime stories had fallen to 14%, yet were in the headlines 35% of the time. Crime stories had dropped, yet we were now overrepresented by a massive amount in the headlines, so that if you were simply watching the news headlines, you would believe we were living in a Mad Max post-apocalyptic war. Why? Because if it bleeds, it leads. Crime rates. Note, not what is causing crime. No. The news grab the gory details and use them to scare people witless. The news media treat their viewers not as citizens, they treat them as consumers. And that has a vast impact on the way they cover all topics, especially human rights. Take, for example, a case on Close Up this year. In the very same week that John Key had announced the rise in GST, a clip of him promising not to raise GST from before the election emerged on YouTube. John Key was to appear on Close Up with the Walrus of News, Mark Sainsbury, but instead of holding John Key to account for his GST U-turn, which funds a massive tax cut for the rich and those spin doctors over there, John Key was bumped so the Walrus of News could interview an all-black who was confessing to drunkenly groping a teenage girl on a Fijian beach. I don't wish to sound cynical, brothers and sisters, but holding the Prime Minister to account over a tax flip-flop that will cost us all, so the Sam Morgans of New Zealand get to have more money, is a little more important than yet another pissed all black having a sob about a drunken romp with a teenager. Don't be conned by these snake oil merchants and spin doctors when they aren't here convincing you how wonderful the news media are. They're trying to sell you Abflex machines, convince you there was no connection between cancer and smoking, and claim Milo cereal is nutritious with all the extra sugar energy children need for heart attacks. The news media treat human rights with more heat than light, and these people help them. When the revolution comes, brothers and sisters, and it is, let's have spin doctors up against the walls with Ronald McDonald and Colonel Sanders. We contend the news media use more heat than light when it comes to human rights. Thank you.
People of the audience, ironic, isn't it, that this journalist who prides himself on waging war on news should have such a narrow, lame, toothless, old-fashioned and self-serving definition of news media. A quick check for current definitions online reveals that news media now means there is no distinction between digital and mainstream. There are numerous quotes. I found them from the Library of Congress. I found them from various acts. The news media is now a term used to describe print media, broadcast media, and internet-based media, including weblogs, Mr. Blogger. Usually, the term includes all working journalists. We live in exponential times where people are changing their media habits. In the US in 2008, newspaper circulation was the same as it was in 1978, when there were 100 million fewer readers in the US. The median age of the live TV viewer in the US is 50, while the average age is 38. That's the age of the entire population. Advertising grew on internet channels faster than any other medium between 2005 and 2010. Here in New Zealand, 20% of New Zealanders' media time is now consumed online. There are over 1.5 million active Facebook users in New Zealand, and there are predictions of the professionalisation of what is called the citizen journalist. That will see many esteemed journalists and commentators coming out of just the man on the street, if you like. So we make no distinction between digital and mainstream media. News breaks momentarily in this digital world, and what appears in our morning newspaper and on the evening news is immediately litigated by bloggers, such as many we have represented here. Bomber has tried to define heat. He tried to. I didn't really get the clarity of his argument, but I think it was something around confusion, lack of clarity, errors in reporting, myths, paid spin that we generate, and I think it was driven largely by ratings. It's got something to do with the market. Well, we agree that broadly, heat is about confusion and lack of clarity. We define light as clarity, discussion, debate, leading to a better understanding of the issue. And we believe that all media, both digital and mainstream, have a part in this process. Now, any honest, hard-working New Zealand PR professional will tell you that in New Zealand, you cannot create news without a bit of heat. We dress things up to have more frills than a Trelise Cooper summer frock sometimes, because that's what the media demand. They demand we have to sex it up. But you know what? We know how to generate debate around that too. We're not old has-beens who don't even understand what media is these days. We know how to get commentators and other opinion leaders online to debate and have a good discussion around those arguments. Friends, our PR team will decisively show you how the range of discussion by what we define as new media helps to dispel that heat that many media do create around human rights issues in New Zealand. And ultimately, that debate and discussion allows light to be shone on those issues, clarity, reasoned thought to emerge, and a good understanding of the range of views on the issues so that people can decide for themselves what they think. I'm going to give you two specific examples where we believe that media discussion on the subject of human rights has shed light. The first is a recent case of Whetu Abraham. He's a gentleman from Napier, and he was covered in a combination of media, both digital and mainstream. The debate was over whether Whetu, who's brain damaged, should be allowed to make donations to his church and should in fact be allowed to attend his church, so it went to his religious belief. The manager of the rest home where he lived intervened. The church paid him back his donations when they understood that he couldn't afford to make them any longer. And but the way the story was filmed by close-up, you would have thought that the church was trying to rip everybody off and that this guy had absolutely no say in the matter at all. Kiwi Blog then ran wild with the story. And lots of differing anti-religious views. It was quite hideous, very informative though at the same time. Then the head of the Eden church posted and explained how they had looked after Whetu, they had cared for him, they had managed his finances and assisted him as much as they could, and shed a whole lot of light on the subject. Another piece also followed in the Napier Mail, so we've got a mixture here of digital and mainstream newspaper going on. Clarity at last, when in fact it was revealed in Kiwi Blog that the rest home manager was trying to stop him from going to church, which was his major joy in life. So is that a breach of human rights, I ask you? But at least it was well covered and well litigated in a range of media. The other journalist that I would like to back for is Derek Cheng of the New Zealand Herald. Some journalists just do it particularly well. He's written several news stories that sparked a corruption investigation at Rumitaka Prison, and he's written on privatisation of prisons in a very balanced way. Every part of the argument has been offered. So, members of the audience, we contend that news media create more light than heat around human rights reporting because of the breadth of the news media these days, allowing momentary commentary and debate around factually incorrect media reporting. Thank you.